my beautiful co-creators, Lilu here. I'm back in beautiful, amazing Mexico, in Valle de Bravo, with Michel, that you have already met, and I know you love the interview, and I had to come back to interview this amazing man, the creator of this beautiful place. And not only I have Michel today with me here, but I'm also sitting with the artist that has created this beautiful dome that is absolutely magnificent and is bringing such a beautiful light into this space. And this is absolutely a love affair. Oh my goodness, I want to hear everything on how that happened, because this is quite a special story. And I think this is another example of how magnificent life is, of how big the creator is, of how magnificent of a creator we are. And so I'm so excited to be back in Mexico, Michel.
Thank you so much, Lilu, for coming back. We love you very, very much. We love your heart and your consciousness. And thank you for being here again. It's a very nice time for me to have you here and to have my very, very close friend, Narcissus Quagliata, who I admire very, very much. And it has been for me a gift from this wonderful mountain, from the spirit of the mountain.
So please tell us about how you two met and why you have decided to work here. I know you were working on some huge projects. You're a famous Italian international artist. Tell us about your background and how you came to work here and how you fell in love with the mountain, because now you live here.
I can definitely tell you that. Well, I had just finished a dome here in Mexico that was being shipped to Rome to be on top of the Basilica of Santa Maria degli Angeli, which is the last architectural work of Michelangelo. So we had an event in the university before the dome was shipped to Rome for installation. And it was a big thing because, as you can imagine, not every day you get to do something that goes on a building of Michelangelo. So Michel was invited at this event, but he did not come. He did not know me. And 3 months later, the dome was inaugurated in Mexico City, and it was shipped to Rome. 3 months later, I was in my studio in Mexico City, and at 1 a.m., I get a call from this gentleman here, Michel, and he says, Narcissus, I was actually going, he didn't know me, but my phone number was on the invitation. So he says, Narcissus, I just was going to bed, and I noticed this envelope unopened by my bed. So I opened it, and it was a dome. The dome it was an invitation to the dome event in Mexico City. He says, well, I thought this was a sign of God, because tomorrow morning I am putting cement over a dome, and this envelope makes me think that maybe it should be glass, and maybe you should do a dome.
Let's pause for a second here, because it was 1 a.m. So if you receive a call at 1 a.m. in the morning, and you have this crazy man named Michel that you've never met before that is asking you, tell us what happened in that moment. I just want to speak about that 1 a.m.
Yeah, sure. Well, as you know, the story of the mountain, no? This mountain has been for me a revelation, a transformation, a revolution in my mind, in my consciousness. Yeah. And I learned to obey. As I was telling you, we commit a lot of terrible things here because we didn't know that this mountain had a spirit. I didn't understand. And we did this terrible cut in the mountain. The architect that was before me, when I was not in the administration, did this terrible cut. And then the mountain was very mad, very sad. And it was through the Tibetan monks that I learned that the mountain was so mad and so angry and so sad. And when I start learning through the Tibetan monks to speak to the spirit of the mountain, it was something completely new for me. But then I understood that I had to obey. Yeah. And I better obey, because if you don't obey, the consequences are terrible, 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 terrible. So I became in bankruptcy and everything, and until I recovered with the Tibetan monks and I spoke with the spirit of the mountain. No, very hard to understand for certain people in this part of the world. No, because we were educated that everything that was really reality was everything that you can see, touch, or hear. No, which is. They say to us that the only thing that existed and reality was the matter. And now in this century they say, the scientist says that matter doesn't exist anymore. Big change, big shift. For me it was very hard to understand that shift, but the mountain helped me a lot and the Tibetan monks helped me a lot. So I was building the hotel that was built in 9 months. 9 months since we started until the end, 64 bedrooms, 64 pools, the biggest spa in Latin America, 1,000 people ballroom, crazy things to do in 9 months, you know. I was working day and night, and I didn't have a project. The project was dictated by the spirit of the mountain every night. The poor man, Bonifacio, that you know, he was crazy, no? Because he didn't know.
Was the construction responsible for the construction.
Oh yeah, okay.
Bonifacio was.
And you know, the poor man he didn't know what he was going to build the next day, because we were in the meditation at night, and the next day we work all night, no? And then we print the blueprints, and they were very, very hot. And we give it to Bonifacio to start working. So that night, I was looking at my old mail because I didn't have time to review the mail. I see that this wonderful dome, and I saw the picture, and the spirit of the mountain told me, you have to call Narcissus Quagliata to make a dome in this space. This space was much smaller. Already built, much smaller, but it didn't have a ceiling yet. And the next day I was going to put the ceiling on cement. Okay.
Just explain one thing. How does the spirit of the mountain communicate to you? Just so that we're clear, where does this voice comes from, or do you feel it in your body? How is it like?
We have our imagination. It divides in 2 imaginations. One is the creative imagination, and the other one is the perceptive imagination. Something that nobody teaches us. It's terrible that universities in the world and schools are not teaching imagination to start. I cannot believe architects and engineers and nobody take imagination. But the imagination that is the perceptive imagination, it's even worse. Nobody even talks about it, no? So I was fortunate enough to have a course, a silver mind control course, and I loved it, and I became an instructor for 20 years, teaching people how to perceive through the imagination, no? So when you go into, let's say you have two different brains, not only one. You have 2 different brains, the left brain and the right brain. And they're communicating through the cuerpo calloso, the calloso body. I don't know how you call it in English. But actually there are 2 brains. And when you are awake and interacting with the world, you are more or less 21 cycles per second in this electricity that flows in the brain. And you are using mainly the left brain. When you go into the state of meditation, you go into a state that is called alpha level, no? Which is more or less from 7 to 14 pulsations per second. And then when you sleep, you go down to theta and to delta, which are deeper levels. But in my course, I teach to people how to get into alpha level. And in alpha level, you are using both of the brains simultaneously. It's a state that you are more or less like dreaming, but we don't call it dreaming, we call it in dreaming, like Carlos Castaneda said in his book, The Art of In Dreaming, or El Arte de Soñar. So in this state of in dreaming, you are dreaming actually, but you are having complete control of this dream and you are 100% conscious. When the spirit of the mountain talks to you, or when somebody that have passed away and have left the body here is talking to you, you have to open up your mind and yourself to listen. Especially with people that have passed away and they want to speak to you and you are too busy. You have to quiet your mind, and it's important to talk to them. Imagine that you will be like inventing at the beginning. You will feel that you are inventing. But once you are asking questions to them and they answer you, and you imagine the first thing that happens in your mind, you assume that is their answer. You start by time understanding that actually this is truth, that the answers are not coming by you but from them. So the spirit of the mountain were talking to me in two different ways. One was with words, telepathically, and the other one was with images, also telepathically. So it's like you are listening, it's like if you were listening to your internal dialogue, no? That you have normally between your inner God and your inner evil. You have this fight normally in the inner dialogue. So when a voice of the spirit of the mountain or other voice is coming to you, you will listen to this voice as the internal dialogue that you have. And at the beginning it's not easy to understand the difference, when is you and when is the other one. But if you open up yourself, if you open up, you will start understanding when is you and when is the spirit of the mountain or other spirit. So at that moment, you know, I was very, very easy. I went about 5 months for a meditation every day for 8 hours and a therapy, and I was very sensible. And at that moment,
at 1 a.m.
1 a.m. I saw the envelope. I saw this beautiful, wonderful dome of crystal, piece of art. No? And the spirit of the mountain said to me internally, call Narcissus Quagliata now. Now. And I said to the spirit...
You argue with the spirit of the mountain?
Yes. Of course I said, come on, you know, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I cannot call a man that I don't know at 1 o'clock in the morning. But the spirit of the mountain insisted to me and said, you have to call Narcissus Quagliata now. And you obey.
So you receive this phone call and you decide to meet him, because how crazy of an idea is it?
I tried to resist. I have to be honest. I tried to resist. In other words, Michel Domit called me, and I knew who he was, and I said, well, Michel, it's wonderful to know you by the phone, but I'm going to Europe in 3 or 4 days, and I have a lot to do. Why don't I see you when I come back? And Michel said, no, you have to come tonight to Valle de Bravo. I said, tonight? I said, yes, because tomorrow I'm putting cement on a structure, and we have to be there by 8 o'clock, because at that time we have to make a decision. If you're going to do a dome of glass or if it's going to be cement. Well, you know, this was so crazy that I had to do it. It's sort of like when something that crazy happens, you have to say, okay, I've got to check this out, right? So he sent a young architect who picked me up at 2:30. I was at 4:30, 5 o'clock at his house. And we went into the jacuzzi and we chat. We never went to sleep. We went to the jacuzzi. We saw dawn. By dawn, After around 7:30, we took the lancha, you know, the boat, to cross the lake, and we were here. And what was here was exactly what Michel said. There was a space ready for cement to be poured over it. He said, well, here it is. What do you think? So we looked at the plans. And I said, quite honestly, Michel, the space is a little too small. A dome would look beautiful here, but it's also a little bit too pushed toward the building. The eaves of the building would cover some of the dome. So Michel said, if you're going to do the dome, we're going to knock everything down, and we're going to do it the right size, and we're going to push it out. So there it was. But wait, this is not where the story ends.
Yeah, because I bet with your Italian mind, you're still Italian, so there must have been something there too. Resisting? No resistance.
You meet somebody at 1 a.m. by phone. By 5 a.m. you are in their jacuzzi on a lake you've never seen. By 8 a.m. you're on a job site. And by 9 a.m. you have redesigned the space. So by 10:30, you know, I said the obvious thing. So I said, Michel, how are you going to pay for this? Oh, yeah. And Michel says, how about with land? And I say, land? She says, yeah, you give me the art, I give you the land. So I said, which land? He turns and he says, this mountain has lots of land. It's got many lots. Pick the one you want, and that's it. So I said, okay. Yeah. So my story starts from there, because in truth, I didn't expect to come and live here. I mean, you know, I was excited about doing the dome. I always loved to do another new art piece, but I walked the mountain, I picked the piece at the very top, where the road didn't reach it at that time. Then I fell in love with the land, and I decided to build my house and studio here, and I did. Yeah. So I live here, and I'll live here for the rest of my life.
I would love you to describe how you work out the light here, and what was your inspiration, and why you choose the pictures that there are here, and the representations and the symbols even.
Well, I don't work out the light. That is the job of the sun. He's doing an excellent job. So all I do is I put some colored blown glass in between the sun and us, so that it creates these wonderful reflections. Amazing. The symbols are quite clear. There is a man falling backward. The man is full of stars, and there is a tree growing out of his chest, and it's the tree of life. So the man is made out of space, and there is a tree that grows out of him. I have to tell you that I love that image so much when I saw it here, that when I did the dome in Kaohsiung in Taiwan, I did the same figure 11 meters long. So I loved doing this. This dome has the initial symbol.
Yeah, and I just want to stop you there too, because there's another interesting thing, is that how when magic like that works out, one thing leads to the next. Because then you happen, from my understanding, to work for the president of Taiwan and doing a huge dome, like one thing, and so this led to another thing, and then another thing, another thing. Okay, what other symbols are there?
There is a woman in a womb. And she's dreaming, and you can see her dream is inside of her. There is a bird flying in her head, and there is clouds. Can you see it? Yes. And she's in a womb, and the womb is on fire. That too, I took that theme and moved it also into the dome that I did in the city of Kaohsiung, the Dome of Light.
Why do you have like in the feet?
In the foot, it has a planet. Actually, a planet being born.
Wow.
It's sort of, don't tell me why, I don't even know myself.
Well, that's an excellent point right there, because artists often describe this moment where you feel in total communion. Did you felt at some point the spirit of the mountain, or really being in this space of pure creation where you were like, am I really doing this?
I agree 100% with Michel. I think the mountain has an amazing amount of power. And I have been working now in my studio, which is at the very top. And I can feel the energy just compressing and coming right up, right through my studio.
Wow.
Because I'm on the crest. My studio is on one side, the mountain falls one way. On the other side, the mountain falls the other way. So if I clear my mind, like Michel says, you know, I just empty my mind and then see what happens. And I can just feel the electricity of the mountain going right through the space I work in. So it's a very powerful experience. So I experience this on a daily basis when I live in my house and I work in my studio. But let's continue. There is a woman turning into a fish.
Oh yeah.
Right there. Then there is, unfortunately, the center is being repaired because it's 10 years, so it's not there. But the center is a star. It's a 16-point star, and around them.
Why 16?
There are 16 sections.
Why?
So, well, we divided it together. We decided that this was going to be 16. Well, we did it, I think, more architecturally because it seemed a sensible way to divide. Around it, there is 8 special flowers. Each one is very different. It's like a rondel. One is a rose. Each one has a separate design. And I have to sort of see. Well, 1, 2, yeah, those are the three symbols, plus the tree of life that grows out of the chest of the falling man, which is made out of stars. And yes, those are the symbols.
So you must have really evolved in your own creation and your own creativity since you're here, you're saying, since your studio has been here?
Absolutely. I want to say one thing about this space. For me, the experience of doing this was very important. Of course, first of all, because it was a pleasure doing the work. But I learned 2 or 3 things. I mean, one, doing this project affected my life completely. In other words, I built my house, I now live here. I think of the landscape that I see from my place and the mountain itself as part of me. So that is one thing. But in terms of the work itself, you must notice that the light is extraordinary. And based on this project, because the sun here is very clear, it's very intense, having put this color in this space with the white is what inspired me to then design a work that I still haven't built. I'm still trying to find a place that will sell it. I'm in discussions in Australia, in Perth. I'm in discussions perhaps here in Mexico, and so I am just at the beginning. But I invented on the base of this a space which is perfectly spherical, which is made for the pure enjoyment of light itself, without any distractions, no stairs, no nothing. So there will be the glass, scientific instruments for projections that deflect the rays of the sun and project eclipses and stuff like that, and the pure light. So before I die, I've got to do this.
And I love, as you were saying this, there was this sound, this hammering sound. Maybe the spirit of the mountain wants it here, you know? There's this drumming. You must be so happy to have this and see it every day. It's therapeutic. It's so calming here. You place the Buddha up there, and it's surrounded by those stairs that are, you walk consciously on it, and you can feel you're in the present moment. Everybody goes through kind of this room. You must be so proud and so happy and so fulfilled with how it came all along and how it looks like now.
I'm so happy. I don't know really if this is a dream or or an actual moment. No, it's like I need to touch myself if this moment is true or not. It's amazing, no, the magic of this place, no, and as Narcissus was saying, demolishing everything that we already built it before. He said it's too small, no, with the time frame that we had to open the hotel and everything and the decision. But I never thought about if I demolish or not. I just say, no, let's demolish it. No, it was like so clear. Simple, so clear. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you remember this moment that for me was very, very impressionant, no? Because one time Narciso was on top and he was contemplating the lake, and I was trying to speak to you, and you were very, very like in yourself, and you said no, wait, and then you turned to me and you said to me, Michel, I have a house in Rome, I have a house in LA, I have a house in Mexico City. And he said to me, you said to me very, very, very sure of yourself. But now I know that I'm going to live here for the rest of my life. That I'm going to work here for the rest of my life, and that I'm going to die here. And I was so impressed. And then you said, and I know that the new art that I'm going to create is not going to need to be moving into one place to the other one of the world, because before I had this idea that in order to be very creative, I have to move from place to place in the earth. And you said, now I know that this is my place and that I'm going to live here, and I'm going to produce the best of my art in this mountain. And I was shocked. And I was shocked because I don't know if it was the first day that we came here and after talking of demolishing and everything, but I was shocked. I couldn't understand how a man could change his life by an insight just like that. No? And I couldn't believe that it was going to happen. It's talking about changing your whole life for an insight that you are receiving in this moment, no? So to me it was a shock, and at the same time it was a teaching from Narcissus.
Yeah. And it's amazing, the impact that it has and the repercussions. And let's say it again, but we're here about 3 hours or a little bit more than 2 hours outside of Mexico. You have to really get here, and you have to want to be here. And there is something definitely special about this place, and some souls are, I think, called to be here and be healed. But you as an international artist, there might have been a more convenient location, but there was something inside, you just knew it. No, it's amazing, this inner voice, this inner feeling, and we just know in that moment, in that second, that we have to do this, that this is the right decision and choice that is going to affect the rest of our life. And I think that's that voice that you're talking about. It's important to listen to it, and it's totally transformational. For you and for everybody around, for your family, for your art, for people that are going to be in touch with it?
I can say this. I have made critical decisions in my life within a day that have totally changed my life. So it might be surprising to Michel, but when I decided to leave Italy, I left Italy. When I decided to leave the United States, I left the United States. They were the decision to leave the United States, I did it in 6 hours. Wow. And after living 30 years in the United States. Wow. And I remember sort of saying, I have to make this decision, I have to make this decision. And I made it, and I never turned back. When I saw Valle de Bravo and this mountain and here, I knew it. I knew it right away. And it was, I mean, for Michel, it seems to be such a special thing. For me, it's like, this is it.
But you have created so much already. You're a successful man. Michel experienced it, I'm sure, so many times in your life. Otherwise, this wouldn't exist. I'm so clear that this is important to get this out in the world, because this is a powerful message. Because most of the people do not listen to that voice and are not confident enough. You have built over the years, and you have this knowing, and you know, and you have this assertion. It's important. It's very important.
Most people live distracted by unimportant things. If you train yourself to pay attention to the important things and you put the unimportant things in their place, it happens quickly. It is not, I mean, it's funny. I'm writing a book now for the Chinese public of the Dome in Taiwan, and because they asked me to write a book on it. And the most frequent question is, how did you invent all the imagery? Everybody, when you go meet people, they say, how did you invent? How did you invent it? The answer is very simple. I invented it by pushing away everything that is unnecessary. I create an empty space, and then the images find me. I don't go find them. They find me. And they were all on the top of this mountain. I remember I went because I put myself away for 3 months. I didn't do anything except be up there, go buy my food, and design that dome. That dome is 30 meters. It's 30 meters in diameter. This is 9, so it's 10 times the size of this. Actually, 16 times the size of this. So I started up there at the mountain. I made quiet, absolute quiet. And then I just stood still. And within a matter of days, my place was crowded with images that wanted to be seen, or, you know, I was being pushed. It's like an image would say, look at me. Then I would draw it and say, no, it's not like that. It's like this. Can't you see? It's like, so what happens is that there is it's like opening a hatch and watching the water go through. It's if you have the hatch closed, of course you can't, but if you open the hatch, the energy will come right through. So the question is, people have to learn how to open the hatch. Then the rest will happen by itself. You don't have to worry about the rest.
By quieting the mind. Yes?
By quieting the mind. You create a vacuum. And sometimes you're very sad. Sometimes you become terribly sad. Sometimes you're terribly happy. You never know what's going to happen. Totally unpredictable.
So you stay in the space, you're standing there, and you just let it be?
Yes. You just let it be. You just make sure that your mind does not go in all the channels of distraction. If you up there at the top of the mountain, you see the moon rise, the sunset, I mean, you actually, when you take a walk on the top, you can actually feel you're on a ball, with the sun being a ball here and the moon being a ball there. It's like being on a Calder mobile. You can feel it. It isn't just that you can think it. You can feel it. You walk and you see the moon and it's all round, and you see the sun and it's, you feel it. And once you're in that space, anything can happen.
So you're in it, you're part of it, you're with it, there's no separation at all?
No.
I think what you're saying, Narciso, it's so important.
No, it isn't.
It is. It is the difference between Siddhartha Gautama being Siddhartha Gautama and Buddha being Buddha. Because when he was contemplating this apple falling from the tree, and he was so intense contemplating the apple falling from the tree, And he understood that if he could stop the internal dialogue, as he did in that moment, for his whole life, he was going to become enlightened. And he spent 1 week doing that, and he became enlightened, and he became Buddha. So I think this is a very, very important key, as you are saying, no? To stop the internal dialogue. Carlos Castaneda, which was my teacher, and I love him very much, and all the witches that he have, he insisted so much, stop the internal dialogue. Because our internal dialogue, our mind, is not us. And many people think that we are this internal dialogue and our thoughts. And this is not us. This is just our mind that we are using, as we are using our body. This body, it's a wonderful vessel, a wonderful vessel. And we're going to leave it here. This mind is something that we are using. And it's wonderful if we know how to use it. But if we don't know where is the turn off button, it's terrible. It can actually drive you crazy. No? Then you have this image like the this man Howard Hughes, no, in the film the pilot or the aviator.
Yeah.
And you realize this giant, no? How was the creator of TWA, and how he fought against Pan Am and against the Congress of USA, personally without any lawyer. And he was such a creative man, created airplanes and driving airplanes, but he couldn't open a door because he was so afraid of touching this knob, no? So I think what you said is it's so important, Narcissus. And I would like very much, because you know, as you know, this mountain have changed my whole life immediately, no? Since the very, very first moment that it appears to me, as it did with yours. I would love very much if you can tell us a little bit more about what you experienced at the mountain, how this mountain changed your life, and how is it to live on the top of this mountain?
Well, at the top of the mountain, when you do what you so clearly described, when you're on top there, you can actually feel the lava below you. You can actually feel the lava, the heat.
Wow.
Underneath the earth.
Wow.
It's one of the few places I've ever seen in the world where when I'm standing, my mind goes to the heat. I mean, how many people think that just a few kilometers below them, it's molten? But there it comes to mind. So what happens is that when you're at the top, at least for me, the frame of reference of what the universe is completely changes. That's why I love being up there. I travel on business, I make installations, I go to Europe, I go to Asia, and then when I come back, I need 2 or 3 days to just get all that junk out of my mind, and then I can begin to think and feel, and it is like going into a magic theater. The stage is up, you feel the liquid of the lava below you, but you're looking up. And usually the sky and the universe, I know, when I look at the sky, I know where the center of the galaxy is. It's very easy. It's between Scorpio and the tail of Scorpio and Sagittarius. So, if I'm in the right time of the year, because most of the time it's below the horizon, but at the right time of the year, I can look and I know where the center of the galaxy is. I know what the plane of the galaxy is, and then I can begin to imagine the space around it and the galaxies around us. And that is the right. That is not something special. That's where we are.
Yes.
It isn't that. It's like you know, you look across the lake and you see the other side of the lake. Well, people should get themselves used to seeing maybe 300 or 400 million light years and see where we are, because we can now. We really can. And so we have extended our eyes to see the universe, even back in time. So you have to extend your spirit to follow the technology that has made it possible. I mean, in a way, people stay very attached to all of their little things.
When there's so much more.
When there is a lot more. And you know, and you have to have a certain amount of sense of humor. There is no judgment here. It's like, but up there in the mountain, you can feel it. And that's the reason I'm there. Because it's very easy to feel it. Sort of all the energy comes right through there. You have space, you see a beautiful view, but from my view up at the top, you can actually feel like you're on a planet. You know, when you see the Star Wars films, you know, they're landing on a planet and you see the planet and then they're landing on it, and there is that in-between shot where you're almost on the surface, but you still feel the curve. Well, that's how I feel up there. I feel that I'm on a planet. I'm not in a flat place with a beautiful view. I'm on a sphere with a beautiful view. And just that perception makes it special.
Wow, I think you have a little something else to add. We can continue this conversation on and on, but I feel the essence is really there, and I'm so happy you get to express it so clearly, both of you, and we can share that with the world. Those are conversations that are special and precious, and thank you for introducing me. Thank you and us, because this is going out to the world now, so thank you. I'm really grateful.
I'm very, very grateful to you, Lilu, because you are changing the world. You know, it's what I think is that the 19th century and before, it was all the same. People live in the countryside, and they were working with earth, with their hands, with their feet. They were no psychiatrists, no psychologists, because people were very, very connected to the universe, as Narciso is saying. And the people that rule reality were the shamans, the priest, every religion people, the spiritual people that was very high, was the one that was defining what reality was. And in the 19th century, when the Industrial Revolution appears and everybody started to move into the cities, and the scientists, it's like they took the paradigm of reality in their hands, and then they defined it that the paradigm of reality was only what you can see, hear, or touch is reality. And we all born in this moment of believing that everything was only matter, but they were taught by our parents that our soul will continue. It was a terrible contradiction. I think what Narcissus is saying here, it's really so important, because this year, the year 2012, it has been announced by Mayans and all the cultures by a year of big changes. And it's known that if we will not increase our consciousness, the planet is going to suffer, and we're going to suffer a lot. And I think this moment in the year 2012 that we're living together in March, in this beautiful light and this beautiful cúpula, it was meant to be, absolutely. Because the world has changed paradigm. Yeah. The new paradigm is that the scientists are saying all that we are, it's atoms, And if you see an atom inside, you see that the atom is made out of space. Maybe 1%, it looks like matter, like the nucleo and the particles. 99% are space. Narcissus said, we are space. As the scientists are saying, we are space. And this little 1%, if you go into, you will find only energy, never matter. But I think you are wonderful, Lilu, because you are bringing to the world, helping the world to understand that we are living in a new paradigm. If we live in the new paradigm as we are living, but nobody knows about it, the old paradigm will continue through this century, and the planet will die and will be destroyed. This man, this wonderful soul, this wonderful friend, it's a mix between a scientist and an artist.
Certainly a genius.
Certainly a genius.
Don't exaggerate.
Absolutely.
Don't exaggerate.
And by the way, I think we all can be geniuses when we're in that space. So you're showing us what genius can be like. So thank you for that inspiration.
Yeah, I think if you are so connected, as you said, you know, I just shot my inner dialogue, and all the images come to me asking to be portrayed. No, anyone that is a channel of the spirit, I think is a genius. It's not so easy to be a channel. It's not so easy to cancel this internal dialogue, but you have done. But the part I like very much about the testimony of Narcissus is that these two brains inside are very equilibrated. There's a scientist in his left brain.
Yeah, I love physics I love physics and cosmology. I love science.
I mean,
I'm always reading the science news, you know, particularly about cosmology and physics.
you know, I know you're a scientist because the way you transform the light, so this thin glass, the way you are transforming.
It's like a mad scientist in this laboratory. I could totally see that from you.
Look at the light, huh?
That is my artwork. Yeah, that is my artwork. But look at that. That is my artwork.
Yeah, you know,
It's a moving artwork.
something that I understood when I met Narcissus, that I got in love with him. It was because when we were talking about his creation, about all the symbols and all this beauty, but when we talk architecturally, when he said, you have to prepare to me the space under the dome, and you have to be clean, and you have to be white, and you have to do something in the floor that is not so strong, but maybe have an image, no?
Yes.
And that is clear, no? And then he started explaining me, I'm going to change the light, I'm going to open the light, I'm going to put the colors of the rainbows all around with these prismas. He is a man that studied physics and that understands very, very deeply the essence of light. So when you hear a scientist talking about stopping the internal dialogue, when you hear a scientist and such an artist at the same time, he is the key of the new paradigm. Mm-hmm. You know, we need people like him. We need people like you, Lilu, that are standing in both legs, that can travel the world, that can handle a camera or a business or whatever, but at the same time be open, with the heart open, in order to listen what the universe and what God have to say. So I feel very, very honored for this moment, because for you that are listening to this interview, if you listen carefully, if you listen deep, if you don't listen in one ear and let this goes out in the other one, if you bring it to the heart, this piece of interview can change your whole life. If you just put attention of what Jos Narciso said, it will change your whole life. So I feel so happy and so honored to have you both in this wonderful sacred Santuario that it's such a treasure for my heart and for my life.
Well, thank you very much for both of you for this moment. And thank you for you watching and sharing this video with as many people as possible around the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lilu. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Make sure you take a picture of that now.
I'm going to do this right now to show you how it looks like and what a beautiful artwork it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Much love, and thank you for your ongoing support on the Juicy Living Tour. And the Juicy Living Tour is starting in Europe, starting in April. So how exciting. We might see you again in Italy. Why not?
In Europe in June.
Beautiful. Thank you. Much love. Bye.
You.
And 3 months later, the dome was inaugurated in Mexico City, and it was shipped to Rome. 3 months later, I was in my studio in Mexico City, and at 1 a.m., I get a call from this gentleman here, Michel, and he says, Narcissus, I was actually going, he didn't know me, but my phone number was on the invitation. So he says, Narcissus, I just was going to bed, and I noticed this envelope unopened by my bed. So I opened it, and it was a dome. The dome it was an invitation to the dome event in Mexico City. He says, well, I thought this was a sign of God, because tomorrow morning I am putting cement over a dome, and this envelope makes me think that maybe it should be glass, and maybe you should do a dome.
Let's pause for a second here, because it was 1 a.m. So if you receive a call my beautiful co-creators, Lilu here. I'm back in beautiful, amazing Mexico in Valle de Bravo with Michel that you have already met, and I know you love the interview, and I had to come back to interview this amazing man, the creator of this beautiful place. And not only I have Michel today with me here, but I'm also sitting with the artist that has created this beautiful dome that is absolutely magnificent and is bringing such a beautiful light into this space. And this is absolutely a love affair. Oh my goodness, I want to hear everything on how that happened, because this is quite a special story. And I think this is another example of how magnificent life is, of how big the creator is, of how magnificent of a creator we are. And so I'm so excited to be back in Mexico, Michel.
Thank you so much, Lilu, for coming back. We love you very, very much. We love your heart and your consciousness. And thank you for being here again. It's a very nice time for me to have you here and to have my very, very close friend, Narcissus Quagliata, who I admire very, very much. And it has been for me a gift from this wonderful mountain, from the spirit of the mountain.
So please tell us about how you two met and why you have decided to work here. I know you were working on some huge projects. You're a famous Italian international artist. Tell us about your background and how you came to work here and how you fell in love with the mountain, because now you live here.
I can definitely tell you that. Well, I had just finished a dome here in Mexico that was being shipped to Rome to be on top of the Basilica of Santa Maria degli Angeli, which is the last architectural work of Michelangelo. So we had an event in the university before the dome was shipped to Rome for installation. And it was a big thing because, as you can imagine, not every day you get to do something that goes on a building of Michelangelo. So Michel was invited at this event, but he did not come. He did not know me. And
at 1 a.m. in the morning, and you have this crazy man named Michel that you've never met before that is asking you, tell us what happened in that moment. I just want to speak about that 1 a.m.
Yeah, sure. Well, as you know, the story of the mountain, no? This mountain has been for me a revelation, a transformation, a revolution in my mind, in my consciousness. Yeah. And I learned to obey. As I was telling you, we commit a lot of terrible things here because we didn't know that this mountain had a spirit. I didn't understand. And we did this terrible cut in the mountain. The architect that was before me, when I was not in the administration, did this terrible cut. And then the mountain was very mad, very sad. And it was through the Tibetan monks that I learned that the mountain was so mad and